This is Start News Global. I'm Amitabh Brevi and glad to be joined from Pennsylvania again by Dr. Ayesha Ray. She's an associate professor with King's College in Pennsylvania. Thank you so much for doing this with us, Dr. Ray.
Thanks, Amitabh.
Just so much tumultuous events in 2021. We thought it would be better what happened at the Capitol, and then subsequently, while politicians mulled over what they were going to do, the Democrats finally have introduced that article of impeachment accusing President Trump of inciting insurrection.
That's right. And so, given the events that happened on January 6th, which were really unfortunate, and the attack on the Capitol, the Democrats now intend to pass a motion of impeachment to remove Trump from office. But I would like to qualify that statement by saying that that there is still a debate. It doesn't mean that the Democrats are actually going to be successful, right? I mean, we are 1 week into this. I would have imagined that this step would have actually happened today. It's supposed to be voted on Wednesday. The vote's supposed to go in on Wednesday. And it would still need the Senate, the 2/3 majority in the Senate to approve of the vote. And so we might see kind of a gridlock over there if a majority, or at least a fair number of Republicans who are still not on board and are on Trump's team, do not agree to the Democrats' resolution for impeachment and removal of Trump, then it's very likely that removal or the impeachment may not actually happen.
Now, when we're talking about gridlock, you're saying there was an attempt to ask Vice President Pence to invoke the 25th Amendment as well, which was blocked by the Republicans. Though I do believe it's complicated, but I do believe the Senate will also vote on that. Could you explain to us, the impeachment proceedings and the amendment, and what's the difference, or do they coincide?
Well, the 25th Amendment is basically where the vice president gets to handle things, right? I mean, when the president is there's dereliction of duty, or he's incapacitated, or he's not in a position to actually be in power, or for reasons like this. If he's participating in insurrection or direct sedition, then the vice president can take over, right? And that's what the 25th Amendment is actually about. Impeachment is sort of different. Impeachment calls for, removal of the president from the grounds, and the vice president really doesn't, is not directly related to the impeachment process in that sense, right? The two things are kind of different.
Now, when they're different, and you're explaining gridlock, again, for those who don't understand the intricacies or the nuances of the American political system, in terms of the numbers, give us an idea of where impeachment stands.
Well, you have the House of Representatives that they would definitely have to make the motion, and they'll pass it. But then you have the Senate, and the Senate would have to approve of the motion. A 2/3 majority, which would actually entail that the motion has passed. But in addition, that's not actually enough. You might. I was actually looking at reports, and some reports on CNN suggest that there's an additional vote that the Senate would require to impeach Donald Trump. And so it's not all that simple that just by putting in the motion or the Senate approving, the game's really not over there.
You're referring to, I think, for banning him for standing for office as well.
That's right. For standing for office again, removal from office, never to be. Yes, exactly. Not to hold a public position, and not to participate in elections or public office again.
Now, President Trump has already been impeached on the Ukraine issue, at least in the House. It didn't go through in the Senate there. It'll be the first time a president is being they're trying to impeach a president for the second time. What does that really mean?
Well, it's pretty dire, the situation in this country. You can see that, this is a president who has aided and abetted an insurrection against the United States. Honestly, it's a direct assault on American democracy. A majority of his followers used the speech that he gave at the rally outside the Capitol, and then followed up and then attacked, launched that attack, a violent attack on the Capitol, invaded the building. And it's nothing short of an insurrection and a domestic terrorist attack. And so this is a very serious crime, and for him to it's hard to see him get away with it. But again, the nitty gritty details of American politics is so complex, and the procedural setting within which it happens, right, is so complex that could put a brake on things. Also, January 20th is the inauguration, and it's not
Yeah.
very far away. So this time gap, we have just a little bit more than a week to impeach and remove him from office. Uh, it's a very tight window, right? And within that tight window, it's up to the Democrats can pass a resolution and all of that, but will they be able to get the votes that they need? Because there are a significant number of Republicans who are not on board. And how much debate can one actually have about this? I mean, it's very clear that the president has to be removed from office. He's clearly unfit. He's clearly a danger to American democracy and to security of the nation. But until and unless they agree, right, there's a consensus, that's really not going to happen. And so one could hope that it happens, but it's hard to place that bet in a very sure manner.
So when you're talking about the timing again, I'm not certain about this, but I think I read reports suggesting that the Democrats could even postpone the whole procedure for up to 100 days and take it up later because they have other priorities. I'm not certain about that. Anything
Right.
you?
That is a possibility, perhaps. Again, I'm not a constitutional lawyer,
Yeah.
so I wouldn't be able to tell you the specific details about that. But the danger in doing that is that this window where the far right militia who want to stage protests, who want to stage armed protests, who are actually organizing right now. They are getting ready to storm like all the state capitals between 16th of January and 20th January. That makes the situation extremely volatile because it's going to call for more violence, right? And once that violence happens, God forbid, there's something that goes out of hand, which is very likely because there's a lot of this upheaval happening right now, and you hear the calls for violence. If that happens, then it's going to sort of stall President-elect Biden's position in kind of challenging President Trump later on, right? In the next 100 days, it's going to make his work. I mean, it's going to make his work, much harder to execute. I think if there is a violent and a successful insurrection this time, so I think before the 20th is the key in a way. Uh, but just because that window of violence is very much real, right? It's very high, and it's a very volatile situation right now. So
Yeah, so Biden has his work cut out either way, and I think from the points that you're raising, you're specifically mentioning what has been reported in the media is an FBI note. I think they're talking about where there are
that's
plans
right.
to storm all 50 capitals and capital in DC, uh,
Mhm.
possibly in the run up and on the 20th. So that's what you're warning about, right?
Absolutely. So the FBI has a report, and they have found evidence that there are these armed groups, armed militias, who are preparing to actually launch simultaneous attacks, perhaps on the state capitals. But they are going to protest. So these are armed protesters, and what is an armed protester? There is no armed protester. I mean, they're violating many of the state laws as well, right? It's not a peaceful protest. Obviously, they're armed and they're ready. We don't know for what, right? And so the likelihood of violence is very high in such situations. And so the FBI has definitely given a warning that between the 16th to the 20th, and 20th is, of course, the big day, that window is extremely dangerous. And they've predicted that there could be an uprising, there could be a rebellion. That's exactly what the report says, that there could be a rebellion. I mean, a much larger uprising if it's all coordinated, right? And if there are multiple attacks. And so right now, they have to focus on preventing that in some way. And given the fact that what happened on January 6th, I mean, they're already dealing with that, but they have to simultaneously do both.
Yeah, so Dr. Ray, just explain to us who are these groups, especially in light of this huge division in American society.
Right. So, it's sort of a patchwork of far-right militia groups, far right white supremacist extremist groups. You have like groups like the Boogaloos, you have the Proud Boys, the QAnon conspiracy theorists. So all of these groups are far right white supremacist organizations, right? Harking back to kind of the days of the Ku Klux Klan. And unfortunately, the United States has a history of these groups being very much prevalent. It's only that we see them becoming more powerful and coming out in the open during the presidency of Donald Trump. And so right now, it's kind of a no holds bar situation where they really don't have anything to lose. They've stormed the Capitol. Now they're organizing. And I do want to make a distinction. Of course, obviously not every Trump supporter is a part of Proud Boys, right? But, there is this whole sea of white supremacists who support him, and his racism and his xenophobia has been very, very clear in many of his messages that they've caught on to, right? And I think that's the biggest danger, the danger from the white supremacist, far right extremist groups that are bent now on reclaiming the white nationalism I think that they wanted because, we had a black president for 8 years. So this is something they want back. They want their country back.
Now, like you're saying, every Trump supporter is not part of those groups, and there's been a lot of talk, at least from the Biden camp, of healing American society. But when you look at the voters in terms of 75 million for Trump, 81 to Biden, no other president has got either of those. Of course, Biden had more. How do you heal that divide? Because there is a huge constituency that is supporting Trump going down further.
Right. Given this insurrection, right, this monumental attack on American democracy, healing can only happen through accountability, right? I don't think, given the evidence of all that we've seen in the Trump presidency in the last 4 years and all the recent actions in the last few days, that this is something that can just be glossed over, right? That's not going to heal the nation. That's not going to heal the nation at all. The people who launched an attack on the Capitol have to be convicted, right? Have to be prosecuted. And unfortunately, the instigator was the American president. And so there has to be some case against him, and there has to be a system that prosecutes him and convicts him and makes sure that he never engages in this kind of seditious activity again, right? And so I think that healing comes with accountability. If there is no accountability, it's not going to be possible to heal because there's too much at stake. There's too much at stake. Too much has happened. Too many, people have died over the course of various different events. And that healing can only happen when there's a reckoning. There's a reckoning that, yes, white supremacy is a problem. White supremacists have always posed a threat, right, to minorities. And so until and unless that is addressed, the healing is going to be much harder. So unity can only happen with acknowledgement and accountability.
Dr. Ray, there was a period, and I think even the Democrats and the Biden administration was mulling about what to do and whether just to let it lie, to just let the transition happen. Trump is not coming for the inauguration, so big deal. Let the Vice President Pence go, but they've decided against that. And that view was probably supported by those who said that you shouldn't make President Trump a martyr. But I think Robert Reich put it extremely well when he tweeted the ex-Labor secretary, when he said it's not about making President Trump, it's also not about making him a hero. That's why this move was
Correct.
necessitated.
Right. No, I would agree with you, definitely. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Right. Dr. Ayesha, again, really thank you for your insights on Strat News Global.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Just a reminder that if you would like to support our kind of journalism, just get on our website, Stat News Global. You've been watching Stat News Global. I'm Amitabh Reddy.